Rightio. So this is the flood and drain system that I set up. It's in, this side is going to be flood and drain, this side is going to be constant flow. We have the standpipe, the guard, everything is exactly the same as the constant flow. The only difference is the bell. Now in this case I'm using a 65mm PVC pipe and a very tight cap. I actually did not glue it on, but it is on so tight that I can't pull it off. But you can see we've got 3 holes that have been cut out, which can be interesting, and I will show you how to do that. You need to make sure, these are about 1 centimetre high. And by popping it over, see at the moment, this is filling up to be a flood and drain, right? Same process, constant flow, just coming up. And if we left it, it will get to this level and then stay at this level, right? But if we add what we call the Bell Siphon, which is this, what this is doing is the water will go up and fill up this whole section, this whole bell, and as soon as the water level is above here, it siphons all of the water out back into the fish tank, which is a really awesome process. Whoever thought about this, hands up, and I really should know who did it, but I don't. But it's an awesome thing, because then all of the water then drains out, and as soon as you've got the water lock happening, it just drains all that water out. And as soon as the grow bed empties, what happens then, the air, you get air going back into that little drain part, so air will end up coming in through here. And when that happens, that breaks the water lock, and it means it then fills up again, so the water then will fill up the grow bed. So this is definitely a good way of running a system, but people do have trouble building their Bell Siphon and building it as a flood and drain. You've just got to make sure that you get everything happening quite right. But it's the same process, you're just adding a bell. So if you do actually have trouble with your Bell Siphon getting this whole thing to work, just remember, you can take the bell off and have what we have over here, which is just your constant flow system. So the water is constantly at this level. Got your guards in there. Your piping that you're using will vary simply depending on what type of grow bed you're building and what your system is doing. Okay, so I've used 20mm here. Generally I use 50mm around my larger aquaponics system, and I'm really not one for irrigation plumbing. But on a small little system like this, it works really, really well. On a bigger system, you're needing a much stronger form of plumbing. Okay, so I have used irrigation and the aquarium hoses here, and I am aware that I will end up getting algae through these hoses, so black hoses here would be a better option. I just don't have any, so I'm using what I currently have until I get more, which, knowing me, will happen. Your system is based on what you need, but by having an understanding of how it works, you can then mold it to what you want. Okay, so good luck. I can't wait to see photos and videos. Alrighty, so we're looking at some of the plumbing and piping that can go into your grow bed, and I've got 3 different parts here. I'm trying to find the right balance. We've got the guard for the grow bed here. We've got the standpipe plumbing here, and if you're wanting a Bell Siphon, then we have the bell here. So let's have a look at the 3 different parts for your Bell Siphon. Why do we have a guard? The guard stops the gravel from going from the grow bed into your plumbing, okay, into the rest of the system. So we've got a cap that we pop on the bottom of it. You can see it's got the hole pre-drilled to fit the standpipe plumbing. So for me in this case it was a 25mm plumbing part that I'm using with a 20mm piping. So I've been able to get the right hole for that, drill the right hole for me for that one into the 90mm. Now the reason why we have the cap that we place on there is that it helps us to keep everything in place and not falling out. So we screw in, hard to see, we've got the holes already marked out and done in. So when we screw that in, and that will then be sitting in our grow bed, that will mean screwed in means no one can accidentally lift up our guard and let all of the gravel out. So that's why we screw it in. I used to bolt it in, but have seen a way. It was Rob Gray, one of his YouTubes, where I saw he screwed it in. I thought that was so much better. So away with the bolts and in with the screws, and these are marine grade screws that I'm using. And this plumbing ends up going on the inside of the guard, and that comes through the bottom here. So we have our O-rings, and so that then moves us on to the next part. We have an O-ring on this side, and then we have the grow bed, and then we have the piping underneath. So if you're imagining moving on to the standpipe part now, we have an O-ring on this side, and you literally have, whoops, this part goes in here. It's going to be so much easier to show you on the grow bed, but basically that comes into here, O-ring on the other side, through the grow bed, and then attaching to that piping there. The standpipe will vary depending on the size of your grow bed, the height of your grow bed. So you measure up the piping that you want. You want to make sure that you've got at least 5 centimeters from the top, that you've got the dry gravel, dry media, so you don't get algae and other problems happening. This is just a bend. If you're having the Bell Siphon, you do want to make sure you've got a bend elbow there, just to make sure you get the water lock happening and you don't get any airlocks. And this is the Bell Siphon. This is the bell that we use. You can see that it's been cut in 3 different sections there. And we've just got the lid on top. Now this is 65 mil, it is pressure pipe. And what will happen is that will go on top of the standpipe. So the standpipe goes inside here, inside there, and that fits into the plumbing on this side. And we'll be able to see it so much clearer when I'm actually putting it together and showing you. But at the moment I'm just, whoopsie, showing you the different parts and pieces that don't want to sit together in this wind. So yeah, it's pretty cool, but you do need to make sure that you get the right heights for your grow bed. So I'll show you how I've measured that up in the next one. Alrighty, so we're now putting plumbing into this little grow bed for our barrel aquaponics. Now, when you're wanting to know the size of what you're doing, you do need to make sure that you've got your measuring tape and your measure. So we want to have, a little bit of space up here. If you allow for the 1 centimetre of space where there's going to be no gravel, and then you allow a couple of centimetres, generally about 5 centimetres, where it's what we have dry gravel. So we don't want that area to get wet, but we want everything else to get wet. Whether that's a flood and drain system or a constant flow system, you do want to have a large wet area, because that's where your bacteria is, so that's your big filter. But you want to have a dry area as well, that way you don't get any algae growing on your grow bed. Okay, so in this particular grow bed, on this side, I'm going to have it just as a constant flow, meaning the water is constantly flowing through and it's going to be constantly flooded. Okay, and not every vegetable likes that, but most do. Most are fine with that, but some, especially root crops, don't really like that. And what we've got in here, we'll show you the flood and drain one soon, but we have the guard, and what this is this, we pop this around our plumbing, and it stops all of the gravel from getting into our plumbing. So we've got to make it and have this ready. So with this particular one, I've just drilled it, just using the largest drill bit I had, and making sure that none of the clay is going to be able to fit through those particular holes. And I have screwed, you can see that there's little markings here. So I've identified where each screw hole needs to be. So here we've got 3, and here we've got 2, and here are the screw holes. It holds it in place so that no one can walk past and go, hey, what does this do? Yank it out, and then messes up what you're doing. So I used to bolt everything in, and I have to give credit. I saw a YouTube of Rob Gray, and he suggested the screwing it in. So yay to him, great thought. So that's what we will be doing. And you can see on the bottom, we've got the cap. This we attach within our plumbing, and we want to make sure it's all worked together so that it doesn't fall out. So how high, and this is our standpipe, I should go with that one first, isn't it? We've got the 3 parts. You've got your male fitting that will go through the grow bed, and we'll screw it at the other end. You have the pipe, and this is a reducer. So this is a 20 mil pipe, and it's a 25 to a 20 reducer. This just allows for the water to come into your standpipe quicker. How do I know how high I want it to be? Well, if that's going to be too high, right? Because there's no area for the dry media, is there? This is just telling you. But it's actually going to be sinking down this much down into the grow bed. So after you measure how high you want it to be, and this is a 30 centimetre depth, which is what we do recommend for good root structure as well as stability, and just so you've got enough bacteria within your grow bed happening. You then just go through and you deduct how much it's going to be, and this can possibly even still be a bit shorter than what it is. But that's okay, because we're just demonstrating and full grow bed and what you're going to do. You'll see on this particular male fitting, I've got an O-ring. Sometimes you can buy them together and sometimes you have to buy them separately, just making sure you do know to do that. The first step, we've already got, let's move the guard out of the way, we've already got our hole here that we drilled, which fits in nice and snug, but we've got the O-ring on this side and we'll have an O-ring underneath it as well. So we want to put the guard here and then put our fitting coming in next, but we want to make sure that we've got the O-ring at the bottom. Okay, and you can see I've taken all of the rough edges off, so there's no sharp edges here. In fact, I've got a spare O-ring. I think you can't have too many personally. I'm going to pop this back where it was. I'm going to screw this into the guard. It's a nice tight fit, which is excellent. And you do want to get it as tight and as low as you can get it, because this is what's going to cause the suction happening if you're doing it as a flood and drain. As I don't want any leaks, this is why I'm putting an O-ring on this side. This is the key O-ring, the one on here is extra. And then we can just screw this into the hole on this side. Alright. And I can feel that's gone through. Now I need to move my screws out of here. So we have pockets. And we're going to keep the standpipe out as well for the minute. Turn my grow bed over, and if you're doing it on a big aquaponics system, you're going to have to get underneath it. Okay, second, or in my case third, O-ring here helps with the leaks. And then we're screwing, this is the female part on. And nice and tight, and what that's doing as I'm putting pressure on both, that's screwing it in from underneath as well. And that is the outlet. So this is where the water is going to be coming in, and this is where the water is going to be coming out. This is our standpipe, which shows how high it's going to be. Now, that's possibly a centimetre too high, so I'm just going to cut off an extra centimetre there to make sure it's not too high. And with the guard, this is where we reline up our points, screw these in, and what this does, water will come in here and it will come up, and as soon as it hits this reducer, it'll flow in there and into the fish tank or into your sump or however you got your system set up. That is as complicated as it can be, or as simple as you want it. You can also make this a lot more complicated. So this is for a constant flow setup. Let's have a look at another video and see what we can do about making this into a flood and drain.